Okay, so last week after we recorded Alyssa, like within hours, Bill Cosby got out of jail, and I think Allison Mack got sentenced, and I think that Alan Weisselberg, the CFO of the Trump organization, got some charges filed against him.
A lot of crime information.
A lot of news happened, and so, instead of trying to get out in front of news that will probably change dramatically within the next 10 minutes, if history proves me right, let's talk about something that isn't going away and isn't changing, and that's climate change.
Yeah.
So this week there's been a few stories that seem to all kind of unite under the banner of, wow, the world seems like it's a little sick right now. New York, where you are, Alyssa, is very hot. How hot is it right there right now?
Right now, it's going to get hotter. I think outside it's about 90 plus, but that's not including the heat index for humidity. So, I mean, it has fluctuated. And this is the point too, to why we don't want to call it global warming, because it was last week 105. And 2 days later, it was a high of 62. That's fucked up, and that makes things die.
How are you supposed to build when the temperatures are fluctuating like that? That's what I want to know. In the Midwest, where my family lives, my sister was talking about they just ended a long drought. It was up in the low 100s in Minnesota. During the winter, it gets to be like 30 below zero there. So that's kind of a hard thing to plan for when it comes to like building stuff. There's also been a huge heat wave on the West Coast in the Pacific Northwest, in Portland, in Seattle. Temperatures were so hot that it was like physically dangerous to be outside, even in the shade. And right now, California is about to get walloped again with another heat wave. Inland temperatures are going to be in the 110s. It's really, it's not great. And in Florida right now, they're bracing for, it was Hurricane Elsa. I don't know if it's been downgraded to a tropical storm.
Currently Tropical Storm Elsa, and she just made landfall.
Okay. So they're also in the middle of searching for bodies in the collapsed rubble of a condo building outside of Miami. They'll probably end up having to either call off or pause because of this extreme weather. So, Alyssa, what is there to be done about all of this right now? Is there anything that can be done?
Well, Erin, a couple things that would be awesome is if people stopped denying this was happening, pretending it was normal, or just like random. Like when you just talked about the heat wave that's in California, we're not talking a couple days. It's starting on Wednesday, today, the day we record, and is expected to go through Monday. In the Pacific Northwest, it wasn't just hot. It was hot for ages. 118 people died. And I learned a new word, hyperthermia. It makes sense, but I didn't know that hyperthermia was when your body gets too hot to live, which is a thing. And so, look, we have heard for years and years, it's like recycle your plastic bottles, do what you can for the earth. But now we need like actual, real intervention so that the earth stops going up like a degree a year or whatever it is now, because this is all very bad. And, in Biden's infrastructure package, there are things that are vitally important that be passed for the good of our country and the world, including $50 billion for infrastructure resilience, $56 billion for modernizing water. So this means getting water to people in rural areas, making sure water is clean, making sure everyone has fucking water, Erin. Can you believe this? We need this in a bill in 2021. Water.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the fact that we can't desalinate water in any way that's energy efficient is a testament to the fact that technology really only advances when it can make people a lot of money. I do think that the global warming thing has sort of, there's only so much we can do to adjust to it. And there are things that I'm hearing climate scientists talk about, and there are things that I'm hearing people just in general talking about that I think are maybe framing things incorrectly. And I'm not trying to pick on you here, but like consumer choice, I think is a really minor factor in all of these things that are causing pollution and excess energy consumption. Like, I saw some people in New York City tweeting about how they received a text about turning their air conditioning off. Well, there's an entire garden of skyscrapers that have nobody in them that are running the AC on blast all day. So like, what the fuck? Why are consumers the ones that have to deal with the consequences of this when commercial buildings and commercial real estate is just kind of home free? Like, why are individual people being told not to water their lawns ever when golf courses exist? Why are commercial interests being allowed kind of unfettered normalcy while consumers are being asked to make all these sacrifices? And it just sort of makes me mad. I mean, when I saw the Gulf of Mexico on fire this past weekend, that's a sentence I never thought I would say. There was a leak of an oil pipeline that caused a fire in the ocean that had to be put out by other water. It looked cool. I will say that.
It looked like the trailer for the new Independence Day or Armageddon.
Yeah, it really did look like Cthulhu was on his way up to be like, "Sup, guys, here I am. Told you I was coming. Now here I am." Yeah, it's upsetting because I think consumers are told that they need to like turn off their sprinklers or take less long showers, which they should be doing. Like, it's not, you shouldn't be hanging out in the shower for half an hour, but it's also like they're seeing all of this guidance aimed at them when, there's so much being wasted in the way that agriculture is being done, especially in like California. There's not really a ton of incentive for people to water their like massive fields of crops in a way that recycles water, is environmentally friendly or anything like that. So, I mean, I think it's sort of like, the feeling that people got when, there'd be all these COVID guidelines and then, the governor would be photographed at a 5-star dinner without a mask on. Regular people were sort of like, well, fuck you then. Like, why am I doing any of this? That's how I feel. That's how I kind of feel like environmental guidelines function when it comes to consumers, because we see what everyone else is doing and it's like, well, fuck you then,
It is like, well, it's exactly to your point. All the people in the Pacific Northwest were told, can you turn your air – like people, don't put your air conditioners on. You're going to short out the grid. And it's like it's 100+ degrees. And the solution to the energy problem is to tell people in homes to not cool themselves. Like, how is there not another solution? Like you said, why not clear out the like skyscrapers and be like, you know what, we're just going to turn the air conditioning off here for a couple days. Now, look, there may be reasons. We don't need people tweeting at us that like, if you turn it down, it's too hard to cool it back down. What the fuck ever. Okay. The point is that real people who work hard every day, the solution to our climate problem is not telling them to broast during a heat wave.
Yeah. And, here on the West Coast, the super high temperatures cause water to evaporate more quickly, which cause drier conditions, which cause forest fires, which if you're somebody that lives anywhere near a place where there are forest fires, that's super bad for your lungs. Like, it's really bad to be breathing that
super
stuff
bad.
In. And if you're raising a child or you're someone who is otherwise vulnerable, it's not sustainable for you to live in a place like that. And if you're not somebody who has the mobility to leave a place where there's a lot of fires, that could lead to like really terrible health outcomes. I mean, people, I think, are unwilling to admit that the climate change crisis is also like a public health problem, and it's like we would save a ton of money on all of the problems that people are dealing with as a result of climate change if we only took some basic steps to make sure that people were safe in the meantime, and then in the long term, we're not making the problem worse.
It's fucking deep.
Yeah. I also wanted to say I saw a story out of Canada that really felt like an Alyssa story for me, which is that fruit is cooking on the vine.
Yes, it's cooking on the vine.
It's all that ruined jam. Did you feel sad when you saw that story?
I felt so sad for it. And, I also learned here, because we had a spate of like 5 days of terrible rain, which is like super unusual for this time of year. Normally we're in a drought. And so your story, there were two pieces of my heart that broke. One was that the fruit here may be dissolving from all of the rain. And in other places, it is cooking to death. Neither of which is good for anybody.
Yeah. One thing I've thought about during this kind of spate of climate-related stories is how I'm worried that not taking environmental precautions are going to start to be political signifiers. Like, you know how someone not wearing a mask in the grocery store is like, I know all about you. I know what you're doing, you know? I feel like driving past someone's house and they've got a big green lawn will be like,
the sprinklers on.
Yeah, I know what you're doing. Or like, you know, a giant truck in a suburb. It's like,
I wish that we could have like lawn signs that you just left around that said bad citizen. You're a bad citizen. You're a bad global citizen. You're a bad citizen on my neighborhood. You're a bad neighbor. Like it's stuff like that is because then it makes it so hard because you know that your sacrifice when you're like, you know what, this is for the greater good is like you think to yourself, you're like, well, I'm not doing my lawn is dead. My bushes are dead. My fruit is cooked. And this guy down, this terrible person is not facing any consequences for his bad citizenship.
Yeah, and I think to that, yeah, I mean, I would absolutely come to that conclusion as well. But I think that what's really important when we're talking about this is that all of us, from the big green yard people to the little brown cactus yard people to the apartment people, understand that we need to fight the real enemy, which is not each other. It's billionaires, commercial real estate, giant,
carbon.
like, you know, it's carbon, it's fossil fuel companies. I mean, it is kind of each other but to a much lesser extent than it is to those like giant polluters.
Well, do you remember when sometimes, you know, we really are political witches, but back when Trump pulled America out of the climate agreement, we said that was like one of his acts of treason, that was like a real act of treason because it was such a permission structure for other countries in the world to be like, if America says it's fine. So like, fuck him for that too.
God, he sucks.
He sucks, dude. He's terrible.
He was so bad while he was in office. And everything that he did in office is proving in retrospect to be even
as terrible as
worse.
We thought.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we solved the climate crisis. I wanted to close with this funny tidbit. It's just like a little bit. It's kind of personal. So remember how we said like last week Bill Cosby got out of jail, right? So this is funny. I texted you about this.
Yes.
But imagine
Don't
my
you wish
surprise.
people could see our text chain sometimes?
I do. Sometimes. I think sometimes.
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes. So last week, you know, Cosby gets out of jail because of a procedural issue with the way that he was prosecuted. Imagine my surprise as I was listening to the radio, listening to a story about it, and I realized I know his lawyer. I know her.
Erin, who was his lawyer?
Her name is Jenny Bonjean, and she, before she defended Cosby, has done a lot of like civil rights cases. Like she's gotten people out of prison who, like in Chicago, were put in prison under John Burge, that horribly awful monster of an ex-cop who utilized torture to extract confessions from people. It was a huge mindfuck, and I don't really want to like go into, you know, the ins and outs, but like, yeah, I knew her in New York. She used to be somebody that I socialized with, and it was just like, wow, okay, that's
to harken back to an older lyric, things that make you go,
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, it was another moment in my life where I felt like a little bit of a Forrest Gump, you know, like, that's weird. That's weird that I just sort of brushed shoulders with that piece of history. And now it's a thing.
Not sure what kind of chocolate she is in the big box of chocolates.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't spoken to her in person in a long time. I never had a problem with her before. It was just like, oh, okay, what? This is very strange. But you know, people are complicated.
We're complicated.
We're complicated, as you could figure out from our text message chain.